The crisp sound of papers hitting the glass table shattered the suffocating silence in the living room. My name is Vivian, a 28-year-old woman facing the most ruthless betrayal from my own blood. My younger brother sneered while throwing the inheritance document right in front of my face. Take this torn shack along with the sick 80-year-old woman because Grandpa left them for you, he declared with pure mockery in his eyes. My father took a slow sip of his tea, while my mother sat elegantly on the expensive sofa without showing a shred of empathy. Grandpa chose you for this specific reason, so you need to fulfill your duty as a granddaughter, my mother said in a chillingly calm voice. Looking at their indifferent expressions made me instantly realize the dark truth behind this supposed inheritance distribution. They were not sharing any real family wealth, but simply pushing the heavy medical burden of my grandmother onto my shoulders. Doing this would leave them completely free to sell the luxurious city townhouse without dealing with an ailing elder. I refused to shed a single tear or waste my breath, arguing with people who only cared about money. I quietly picked up the yellowed folder from the glass table before gently holding my grandmother by her fragile arm. We walked straight out of the front door of the place I once called my warm home. Thank you so much for taking your time to listen to the beginning of my story today. If you want to see exactly how I turn this pathetic inheritance into a massive empire to make them regret everything, please subscribe to the channel. Make sure to leave a like or a comment if you support my decision to walk away. The next morning, while I was diligently clearing the rotting wood scraps scattered across the floor of the Door County cabin, Lillian waved her hand to call me over to her side. The previous night we spent together in that dilapidated wooden house had been incredibly harsh because the biting wind easily seeped through the severe cracks in the uninsulated walls. The freezing temperature visibly worsened the chronic heart condition of the 80-year-old woman lying on the makeshift bed next to me. Her breathing had become dangerously shallow until I carefully administered her emergency heart medication while gently rubbing her back to soothe the sudden fatigue plaguing her fragile body. Seeing her finally drift off to a more stable sleep in that terrible environment made my chest tighten with an overwhelming sense of responsibility for her ultimate survival. She did not hand me a massive stack of legal documents or proudly announce a giant sum of money to solve all our immediate financial problems. Instead, she slowly reached beneath her thin pillow to pull out a single thick envelope that was meticulously sealed with dark wax to protect its contents. Her wrinkled hands trembled slightly while she placed the mysterious package directly into my palms, with an expression full of absolute gravity. Lillian looked straight into my eyes before explaining exactly why Dad and Mom were completely removed from the inheritance equation by the family lawyer. She revealed that they only ever cared about maintaining their flashy lifestyle in the city at the expense of building any genuine family connection. They had even tried to sneakily manipulate Grandpa into signing over the remaining family assets during his final days in the hospital room. Their relentless greed combined with their shocking lack of empathy had permanently shattered any remaining trust my grandparents ever held for them. She then moved on to expose Harrison for his outrageous gambling habits, along with his consistent disrespect toward the elders in the family over the past decade. Lillian firmly stated that I was the absolute only person who visited them out of pure sincerity, without ever asking for a single cent or expecting material rewards in return. Her words carried a heavy weight of gratitude that brought a sudden rush of warmth to the freezing room despite the damp conditions surrounding us. I stared at the heavy package in my hands while feeling completely overwhelmed by the sudden shift in our bleak reality. But Grandma, I have no experience managing such a large asset. I protested nervously while tracing the rough edge of the vintage paper. The sheer thought of holding the key to our future survival within a single piece of paper terrified my rational mind. Lillian simply shook her head to dismiss my immediate doubts before flatly refusing to disclose the exact financial figure hidden inside the envelope. She made it perfectly clear that this secret fund was intended to serve as a solid foundation for us to rebuild a better life from absolute scratch. You do not need to know everything inside yet. Just know that you are the only one I trust, Lillian replied with a soft but remarkably reassuring smile. She instructed me to discover the truth myself when the right time came to activate the legal contents of the package with professional help. Holding that sealed envelope made me realize that my grandparents had orchestrated a quiet rebellion against the toxic members of our family long before this eviction happened. I carefully tucked the important document deeply into my winter coat pocket while silently promising to honor the immense faith she had just placed in my hands. This unexpected revelation officially marked the permanent end of my passive acceptance regarding the cruel treatment inflicted upon us. 3 days later, I sat in a small coffee shop 2 blocks away from the law firm while tightly gripping the unopened envelope in my trembling hands. The overwhelming fear of facing hidden debts left behind by my late grandfather constantly gnawed at my rational mind during those agonizing waiting hours. I honestly could not bring myself to fully believe that this mysterious package contained anything capable of saving us from our current financial ruin. That intense paranoia forced me to seek professional guidance before making any irreversible legal commitments regarding the suspicious inheritance my grandmother had just handed to me. I patiently waited for the arrival of my best friend Chloe, who currently worked as a highly successful commercial real estate broker in the city. Her extensive expertise in navigating complex property contracts made her the absolute perfect person to evaluate this highly secretive situation without triggering any unwanted attention. Chloe rushed into the cafe while immediately noticing the extreme tension radiating from my rigid posture across the wooden table. She gently took the heavy package from my cautious grip and carefully inspected the thick wax seal protecting the hidden documents inside. "You cannot handle this pile of documents alone. Let me look through them before meeting Edward," Chloe stated with an incredibly reassuring tone that instantly calmed my racing heartbeat. She skillfully broke the seal to scan the preliminary papers with a highly trained eye, looking for any hidden legal traps or outstanding mortgage liabilities. After several minutes of intense reading, she confidently confirmed the absolute legitimacy of the preliminary paperwork, while urging me to immediately head toward the main legal office. We quickly walked down the busy street to formally meet with my lawyer, Edward, who had been managing various corporate accounts for over 20 years within the downtown district. Sitting inside his heavily soundproofed office finally gave me the necessary courage to let him officially extract the core documents from the thick envelope. Edward meticulously arranged the vintage papers on his polished mahogany desk before revealing the astonishing truth that completely paralyzed my entire body. The documents authorized my direct access to a private trust fund holding exactly $20 million generated from the previous sale of my grandfather's highly valuable corporate shares. Hearing that massive number echo through the quiet room left me entirely speechless while my brain struggled to process this life-changing financial reality. Edward systematically explained the detailed legal procedures required to securely transfer the administrative power into my personal name without causing any public disruptions or unwanted attention from the local banking authorities. Despite the massive wave of relief washing over my exhausted mind, a dark, lingering anxiety regarding my treacherous relatives quickly resurfaced to haunt my thoughts. I immediately demanded that Edward draft an ironclad legal barrier to completely block Dad Mom alongside Harrison from ever claiming a single cent of this newfound wealth. I explicitly refused to touch any of those funds until an absolute legal shield guaranteed Lillian's ultimate safety from their persistent greed. "This trust fund is ready. Your legal records will be completely secured from your family," Edward firmly promised, while immediately typing the protective restraining clauses into the main agreement. Knowing that our future was finally safe from their toxic influence allowed me to properly envision the ambitious resort project my grandparents originally dreamed about. I turned toward Chloe to formally offer her the vital position of Chief Operating Officer for this massive upcoming development in Door County. Chloe enthusiastically accepted the challenging role and immediately pulled out her digital tablet to begin outlining our very first practical steps required to secure construction permits. We spent the rest of that afternoon transforming a desperate survival situation into a highly structured business strategy aimed at resurrecting a luxurious empire right over those rotting wooden ruins. 2 months later, the deafening roar of heavy excavators echoed across the property to signal the initial demolition steps of that ruined lakeside cabin. Watching those rotting wooden walls collapse into the muddy ground felt incredibly liberating, but the early construction phase quickly proved to be overwhelmingly difficult. We encountered severe bureaucratic delays regarding the initial capital disbursement because the regional financial institutions required extensive documentation to verify the massive trust fund transfers. The local banking officials were highly skeptical of a young woman suddenly wielding $20 million without any established corporate background in the hospitality industry. My daily anxiety truly peaked when our primary building contractor mistakenly delivered a massive shipment of cheap pine instead of the premium cedar specifically mandated for our luxury foundation. Dealing with these logistical nightmares constantly tested our limits, while the looming threat of the freezing Wisconsin winter pressured us to work twice as fast. Chloe immediately demonstrated her exceptional operational leadership by driving straight down to the chaotic dirt site to confront the careless supplier directly. She refused to accept their pathetic excuses regarding supply chain issues, while aggressively demanding a complete replacement of the defective materials within 48 hours. Her fierce negotiation tactics forced the supplier to cover all the extra transportation costs without allowing them to extend our strict project deadlines. Having her fiercely manage the physical ground operations effectively prevented the entire resort project from stalling during those crucial weeks of unpredictable freezing weather. Meanwhile, Lillian experienced a remarkable stabilization in her chronic cardiovascular condition thanks to the incredibly crisp lakeside air surrounding our temporary rental house nearby. She still required constant daily monitoring from a specialized private nurse to ensure her safety, but her newly restored energy allowed her to actively participate in our daily development meetings. She spent countless hours carefully analyzing the complicated architectural blueprints before pointing out specific landscape features that completely lacked natural harmony. I think this particular lakeside corner suits a peaceful therapeutic garden much better than a noisy restaurant. You should probably review the blueprints again, Lillian suggested with a deeply thoughtful expression while pointing at the colorful zoning map. I took her highly valuable advice seriously by ordering an immediate design revision while simultaneously battling the crushing psychological pressure of my own responsibilities. Learning to manage such an intimidating corporate cash flow forced me to step entirely out of my comfort zone during those relentless working hours. I personally sat through dozens of exhausting boardroom meetings with senior bank directors to secure independent project accounts that would protect the original capital. Establishing these separate commercial accounts was an absolute necessity to ensure that the daily construction expenses never compromised the core investment portfolio generating our ultimate safety net. We are rapidly depleting our contingency budget for this current month. You need to renegotiate the payment terms with the lumberyard immediately. Chloe warned me while reviewing a thick stack of invoices during one particularly stressful morning briefing. Taking her urgent financial warning to heart pushed me to leverage every single negotiation tactic I had recently acquired to stabilize our bleeding corporate accounts. The relentless combined perseverance between Chloe firmly managing the unpredictable physical construction and me ruthlessly securing the corporate funding gradually brought the chaotic site into proper order. We successfully collaborated to correct those critical foundational mistakes before finally erecting the solid wooden frames of our very first luxury bungalows along the waterfront. The distinct smell of freshly cut cedar wood finally replaced the lingering stench of decay that had previously haunted this isolated property. Standing there, watching those magnificent structural silhouettes rise from the exact spot where my toxic relatives once abandoned us, filled my chest with an indescribable sense of permanent victory. 3 years later, our five-star resort officially lit up brilliantly during the exclusive VIP grand opening night, right along the pristine waterfront. The sprawling luxury complex operated with remarkable efficiency, right from the very first week of welcoming wealthy tourists seeking a premium wellness retreat. Our centralized online reservation system quickly showed that the entire hotel property was completely fully booked for the next 6 consecutive months without a single vacancy. This overwhelming commercial success immediately generated a massive stream of stable revenue, while firmly cementing my personal reputation within the highly competitive regional hospitality industry. Knowing that the daily resort operations required intense micromanagement to maintain our elite rating, I fully delegated the human resources department along with all guest services directly to Chloe. She expertly handled the demanding staff schedules while implementing rigorous training programs to ensure flawless customer satisfaction across all our premium amenities. I exclusively concentrated my daily executive efforts on negotiating lucrative partnership contracts with high-end organic food suppliers operating throughout the state. My primary corporate responsibility permanently shifted toward maintaining strict oversight of our high-level financial investments to continuously multiply the overarching trust fund capital. The hotel is fully booked for the next 6 months. The system you established is operating perfectly, Chloe proudly announced while placing the glowing quarterly financial reports directly onto my massive oak desk. Lillian finally began to truly enjoy a deeply comfortable lifestyle, completely free from the bitter cold that had previously threatened her fragile existence. We permanently hired a highly experienced private physician who remained constantly on duty at the resort premises to monitor her cardiovascular health around the clock. She no longer worried about basic survival needs, but instead focused her newly restored energy on directing our heavily funded corporate charity foundation. Her decisive voice shaped our corporate philanthropic strategies by directing substantial financial support toward improving local community healthcare initiatives across the entire county. Seeing her confidently chair those formal charity board meetings filled my heart with immense pride regarding the highly secure empire we had successfully built together. The peaceful security surrounding our luxurious lakeside sanctuary experienced a sudden disruption when disturbing whispers began circulating among my urban real estate partners. Several trusted industry contacts confidentially informed me that the prominent investment firm previously managed by Mom and Dad was currently facing a ruthless federal audit. The serious corporate allegations specifically involved massive financial fraud linked to their highly leveraged commercial properties located back in the metropolitan area. The federal banking regulators had allegedly frozen their primary corporate accounts pending a massive criminal investigation regarding their highly questionable mortgage applications. "I heard Walter's company is being sued. You should mentally prepare for the worst," Lillian firmly warned me one quiet afternoon while deeply analyzing the financial section of the daily newspaper on the outdoor terrace. Her ominous warning materialized into a concrete reality just 2 days later during a seemingly normal executive board meeting inside my office. I picked up my personal smartphone from the polished conference table only to discover a glaring notification illuminating the dark glass screen. The digital display clearly showed a missed audio call originating directly from Harrison after exactly 4 years of absolute radio silence between us. Staring at his familiar contact name blinking on my device, instantly confirmed that the devastating financial consequences of their fraudulent actions had finally cornered them completely. This sudden digital intrusion served as an undeniable factual indicator that the toxic relatives who once ruthlessly abandoned us were now desperately looking for an immediate financial lifeline. Exactly 1 week after that disturbing missed call, the two-way radio belonging to our main gate security team suddenly blared a loud alarm regarding an aggressive trespasser. A heavily scratched luxury SUV abruptly stopped right in front of the reinforced security barrier, blocking the main entrance of our sprawling property. Dad-Mom, along with Harrison, slowly stepped out of the damaged vehicle looking incredibly haggard beneath the bright afternoon sun illuminating the resort. They wore noticeably sloppy clothes that completely failed to hide the miserable reality of their recent financial bankruptcy back in the metropolitan city. Their faces carried deep wrinkles of sheer exhaustion caused by the relentless legal battles they were currently fighting against their furious corporate investors. All three of them literally dropped their jaws while staring blindly at the massive hospitality complex standing proudly on the exact same property they once considered worthless. The sprawling cedar architecture, perfectly combined with the pristine landscaping, left them completely overwhelmed by the undeniable magnitude of the business empire they had previously despised. They frantically looked around the bustling courtyard as if trying to comprehend how a rotting wooden cabin magically transformed into a highly exclusive five-star destination. Seeing wealthy guests casually strolling past the expensive water fountains clearly magnified their bitter regret regarding their terrible decisions made 4 long years ago. Despite clearly being in a remarkably desperate position, Harrison stubbornly maintained his familiar arrogant attitude while approaching the uniformed guards blocking his direct path. He started shouting loudly at the highly trained security personnel while violently gesturing toward the main lobby doors with a deeply entitled expression on his face. "Open the gate right now because my sister is the owner here, and this land is our family property." Harrison aggressively screamed at the head of security. He genuinely believed that he could simply waltz back into our peaceful lives to casually claim ownership over a highly profitable business he never helped build. His disruptive behavior merely highlighted the pathetic nature of a spoiled adult throwing a childish tantrum after destroying his own privileged corporate life. I had thoroughly monitored their tragic legal situation over the past few days through my private investigators, so their sudden desperate arrival did not surprise me in the slightest. Instead of feeling intimidated by their loud public demands, I felt a deep sense of calm resolution settle over my mind as I finally prepared to face my toxic past. I confidently walked out from the grand lobby wearing a sharply tailored business suit that perfectly reflected my absolute authority over the resort premises. The loud commotion happening near the security barrier immediately ceased the exact second they spotted me, standing tall on the elevated marble steps overlooking the main driveway. Dad and Mom stared up at me with wide eyes filled with a sickening mixture of sudden realization paired with desperate hope for their immediate financial salvation. I slowly descended the long staircase without breaking eye contact with the people who had callously thrown me away 4 years ago to protect their own selfish interests. I approached the security podium with measured steps while raising my hand to silence the guards who were preparing to physically restrain Harrison from trespassing any further. "Let them into VIP room number 3 without serving any water. I will handle this situation personally," I firmly commanded the security chief standing beside me. The guards immediately unlocked the heavy side gate to silently escort the 3 intruders toward the isolated meeting room located far away from our paying guests. Watching them nervously follow the security personnel down the polished marble hallway finally gave me the perfect opportunity to resolve this bitter family conflict once and for all. I took a deep breath of the fresh lakeside air to steady my nerves before following them inside to officially close the darkest chapter of my adult life. 15 minutes later, I sat directly across from my estranged biological family, with my arms firmly crossed inside the completely soundproof VIP meeting room. Mom and Dad immediately began projecting an incredibly fake tone of parental affection, while dramatically complaining about their crushing financial debts back in the metropolitan city. Mom aggressively leaned across the table to remind me about the blood running through our veins as if that biological fact somehow erased her past cruelty. Dad quickly followed her deceptive lead by attempting to guilt-trip me into signing over a significant percentage of my corporate shares to salvage their failing investment firm. They shamelessly pressured me to fulfill my supposed filial duties by sharing the massive resort profits to save them from absolute bankruptcy and public humiliation. Their sudden attempt to play the victim card felt incredibly insulting considering how ruthlessly they had discarded us without a single second thought regarding our basic survival. I maintained a completely stoic expression while listening to their pathetic excuses without offering a single nod of sympathy to validate their highly manipulative performance. Harrison quickly lost his fragile patience when he clearly realized that my indifferent demeanor would not break under their combined emotional manipulation techniques. He violently slammed his fist against the polished glass table before pulling a torn handwritten document from the inner pocket of his dirty jacket. The crumbling document he proudly displayed was nothing more than an outdated draft that Grandpa had explicitly refused to officially notarize before his tragic passing. He aggressively waved the old piece of paper in the air while threatening to legally reclaim half of the luxury resort ownership through the local court system. Do you really think building a few fancy houses means you can swallow Grandpa's land completely? I have the legal power of attorney right here. Harrison screamed with a deeply venomous glare. Edward had been quietly standing near the corner of the room to observe the entire interaction since the very beginning of this tense confrontation. He confidently stepped forward before dropping a massive stack of official legal files directly onto the center of the table with a loud, intimidating thud. The sudden, heavy sound instantly shattered Harrison's foolish arrogance while forcing the three of them to stare nervously at the incredibly thick corporate documents. Edward systematically presented undeniable evidence detailing how their metropolitan investment firm was currently collapsing under the heavy weight of multiple federal fraud investigations. He clearly pointed out that their malicious actions had left them with absolutely no viable escape route from the impending criminal charges filed against them. He explicitly clarified that attempting to extort a legitimate hospitality business using fraudulent documents would only accelerate their inevitable journey toward a maximum security federal prison sentence. That specific piece of paper lost all its legal validity exactly 4 years ago. This entire property officially belongs to Vivian now, Edward stated with absolute professional authority. Dad opened his mouth to angrily protest the undeniable legal reality, but the heavy wooden door of the meeting room suddenly swung wide open. Lillian slowly walked into the tense room radiating a majestic aura of absolute authority that instantly commanded total silence from every single person present. She no longer resembled the frail, sick woman they had so eagerly abandoned to suffer a lonely death in a freezing wooden shack 4 years ago. Her perfectly tailored clothes combined with her crystal-clear eyes proved that she was the true silent power holder who had masterminded their ultimate downfall. Seeing her stand there with such undeniable mental clarity completely paralyzed Mom and Dad, who still mistakenly thought she suffered from severe permanent cognitive decline. Lillian stood firmly beside my chair to personally deliver the final righteous judgment upon the greedy relatives who had completely forgotten the true meaning of loyalty. Right at that exact moment, Lillian's highly authoritative appearance completely destroyed their entire deceptive hope of successfully reclaiming the valuable commercial property. She coldly stared directly at Dad and Mom while officially severing all remaining family ties due to their unforgivable past cruelty and bottomless greed. She explicitly reminded them how eagerly they had sacrificed her basic medical survival needs just to confidently maintain their fake wealthy lifestyle in the metropolitan city. You threw away that torn shack along with this sick old woman. You have absolutely no right to step inside here now, Lillian declared with absolute disgust. Her incredibly powerful words echoed heavily through the quiet room while completely paralyzing Harrison, who finally realized the terrifying severity of his deeply foolish actions. Mom desperately tried to reach across the glass table to grab her hand, but Lillian quickly stepped back with a look of pure contempt. Dad attempted to offer a pathetic apology regarding his past mistakes, but his trembling voice failed to produce any coherent words under her intensely judgmental gaze. Edward immediately delivered the final legal warning by commanding them to permanently vacate the private premises unless they preferred facing severe criminal trespassing charges. Please leave immediately before we call the local police department to file an official criminal report, Edward firmly instructed while gesturing toward the heavy door. He efficiently signaled the waiting security personnel to closely escort the three humiliated individuals down the polished marble hallway toward the main front entrance. They stumbled clumsily out of the luxurious lobby in absolute defeat, while finally realizing they had permanently lost their only potential financial lifeline forever. The highly trained guards stood firmly by the main gate to ensure the unwanted intruders did not attempt to cause any further public disturbances. They slowly drove away in their damaged vehicle to face a terrifying metropolitan future, entirely filled with absolute bankruptcy and aggressive debt collectors. The massive iron gates slowly closed shut behind their fleeing vehicle to physically symbolize the permanent legal barrier we had successfully erected against their toxic presence. Lillian and I stood quietly on the elevated marble steps while watching their ruined vehicle completely disappear behind the distant pine trees along the highway. The cool evening breeze swept across the pristine courtyard to comfortably wash away the heavy tension they had briefly brought into our highly secure sanctuary. We did not feel any lingering guilt or unnecessary sorrow regarding their pathetic downfall, because they had actively chosen that highly destructive path themselves long ago. We officially closed that deeply painful chapter of our past to fully embrace the wonderful peace we had successfully built together through sheer unwavering determination. Standing beside the woman who truly believed in my hidden potential proved that our shared resilience was vastly more valuable than any inherited city mansion. This official channel production presents a highly educational narrative specifically designed to convey crucial messages regarding establishing strict personal boundaries. We aim to clearly demonstrate how individuals can successfully handle severe family crises by utilizing rational thinking and appropriate legal protection. Vivian decisively protected her own mental well-being by permanently cutting all toxic ties with her deeply abusive relatives without showing any hesitation. The malicious antagonists ultimately suffered the inevitable catastrophic consequences, resulting directly from their own highly greedy financial decisions. Their devastating downfall serves as a perfectly objective testament regarding the incredibly heavy price of familial betrayal. Reflecting upon this deeply emotional journey reveals several profound lessons regarding the absolute importance of establishing strict personal boundaries against toxic family members. Surviving cruel abandonment from your biological relatives clearly teaches you that genuine family is never defined by a simple birth certificate, but rather by the protective loyalty consistently shown during incredibly dark times. Selfish greed combined with casually discarding vulnerable family members during their severe medical struggles will eventually return to completely destroy your own life through the undeniable forces of ultimate karmic justice. Maintaining profound kindness and unwavering professional perseverance through the darkest chapters of your personal life creates the strongest possible foundation to build a fiercely independent and brilliantly successful future for yourself. I want to send my absolute deepest gratitude to all the wonderful listeners who patiently followed my highly challenging journey until the very end today. Do you think my final decision to permanently refuse any forgiveness was far too cold, or was it the exact rightful consequence they truly deserved? Please share your deeply analytical thoughts regarding this specific family situation in the comment section down below,